Welcome back to Hey Kentucky. Now, we've heard a lot about the influence of so-called fake news. A lot of people say it every time they see something they don't like, and it really started during the presidential election. But tonight, some of our friends from the New Circle Circular decided to dive into the issue head first. Check it out.
You hear it all the time, whether it's people commenting on Facebook or Twitter, or people shouting it from their presidential or gubernatorial press conferences. Fake news. Sure, if you're a politician, you can have some staffers that can go through and tell you what's true and what's fake, or what you don't like and would like to just call fake news. But us regular folk, we don't have our own personal Morpheus telling us what's real and what's fake. We have to sort through it ourselves. So we came here to the UK School of Journalism to learn the difference between real and fake news. What is fake news other than the Huey Lewis cover band that I'm starting?
The only legitimate definition of fake news is false information that is put out masquerading as truth.
Do you think having these 24-hour news networks where we have people come on and editorialize or give their opinion on some of the news stories, do you think those lines are blurred now because we have so many talking heads giving opinions?
Yeah, and you hit on the right word. When you have so many talking heads giving opinions about fact, then the emphasis becomes on opinion. We've got a media environment where there's so many news outlets and information outlets that everybody is hungry for audience. And they're more in the business of giving people what they want instead of what they need. And that's part of journalism, rendering a judgment within your newsroom about what your readers, listeners, and viewers really need to function in a democracy.
If I'm just scrolling through Facebook and I see a news story that I find very interesting about some sort of an underground ring being run in pizza places in Washington, D.C., how do I know if I'm looking at a reliable source or I'm looking at an unreliable source?
Your source should have sources,
Okay.
and those sources should be authoritative. Are they quoting the police department, the sheriff's department, someone in authority, someone who has knowledge about these things? Or are they quoting unnamed neighbors or sources in some agency you never heard of?
I find a lot of times CNN and the New York Times, they won't report on some of the more interesting stories that you'll find on places that end with .wordpress.com or things like that. Do you think that they're just biased against some of those interesting stories about lizard people taking over the country?
Well, no, they're biased in favor of the truth.
The governor, Matt Bevin, has decided to start doing a lot of his press conferences over Facebook Live.
That's not a press conference.
I've heard a lot of journalists complain about it, but don't you think that just saves the journalist time of having to drive down there and have him not answer their questions?
But what good is that? Journalists aren't interested in saving time. Journalists are interested in getting facts, and they're interested in holding him accountable. That's why we have a First Amendment in this country. The Founding Fathers knew that democracy would not work unless there was a device by which people in public office could be held to account. And if a guy gets up and does a Facebook Live bit, nobody gets to ask him questions.
Okay.
It's a one-way communication channel.
But there's comments. You can hit the thumbs up and stuff. Or the
But
hearts.
that's people communicating with each other. They are not asking him questions. That's the fundamental thing you do at a press conference. That's why it's been a hallmark of American journalism and democracy for over a century.
I'm coming up with a website that fact checks cartoons, news in the cartoons, and the main character is Bright Bart Simpson. Good idea, bad idea.
Sounds interesting.
Do you think it's become harder to tell what's truth and what's false now because everything that the president does is so unbelievable?
Well, partly true. He's a rule breaker. He's a disruptor. And that is to his advantage as he seeks to delegitimize journalism.
While places like CNN and the New York Times may be considered by many current U.S. presidents to be fake news outlets, these distinctions aren't always so black and white. In fact, some newspapers are even printed in color now. If we've learned anything today, it's that in a democracy, it's up to us, the citizens, to do our fair share in the search to find the truth. We can't just blindly trust people or groups that we tend to like or agree with. Instead, we should continue to question the media, ourselves, and our representatives. So make sure you research your news outlets, check their sources, make a list, check it twice, find out who's been Illuminati or nice.